Well, Brendan Gale's got a lot to answer for. His 2010 interview on Footy Classified, where he detailed the club's ambitious 10-year plan, is now famous. We aspire to have won our 13th premiership, biggest supporter base in the country, zero debt, and the best match day experience. Well, tick, 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 and Gale looks like a genius. It was a remarkable vision from he and the club, and the ability to meet and exceed nearly every benchmark was uncanny. However, it's been disastrous for almost all the other clubs who have tried to copy Gale's blueprint. Take Port Adelaide, for example. In its 2021 vision titled Chasing Greatness, it set out to win 3 premierships in 5 years, reach 100,000 members and be debt-free. Well, they better hurry up. In 2011, Carlton released theirs, titled Blueprint, which aimed to win 2 flags by 2015. They sacked 2 coaches in that period instead. It didn't stop the Blues from going again, though. In 2019, under former CEO Kane, the Carlton Way was born, and it had a target to win premierships, plural, in the window from 2019 to 2023. Like Port, they also better hurry up. In 2017, Hawthorn stated that they wanted to win 2 flags from 17 to 2022. Not only will they not win 2 flags, they won't win a final in that period. The plan went on to say that they want 20 premierships in total by 2050. That's 7 in the next 27 years. The competition's goal is for a team to win a premiership every 18 years. To achieve that, Hawthorn must win 1 every 4. These ridiculous examples was why it was so refreshing to hear new Collingwood CEO Craig Kelly speak to SEN yesterday. There were no references to marketing slogans that were cooked up by club executives to sell membership. There weren't any lofty and unrealistic on-field goals that only end up embarrassing the club. Here is Kelly speaking to SEN yesterday.
I think that's the thing that excites me about going back, and I think hopefully this will finish my work career. And I want to, I'm 57, and hopefully I've got a few years to do this, and I'm not going to sit there saying we're going to win flags and stuff. We're just going to do a good job, and hopefully the supporters are proud of what the club delivers to them and the fun they have turning up to the footy and screaming, yelling, and feeling like it's their club. That's what's really important and exciting.
It's a great, simple message, and clubs should focus on just that. Employ a coach that wants to play an exciting, competitive brand of football, so the fans want to buy memberships, merchandise, and attend the games, in turn making the club highly profitable. Spare me the latest advertising agency jargon, the PowerPoint documents, and laughable premiership targets. Kelly already has his priorities in the right order. 1300 736 736. Gerard, do you like it when clubs set lofty expectations, or does it just set them up to fail?
I loved it when Richmond did it under Benny Gale. It was extraordinary. It was revolutionary. So he was a first, and he didn't hold back. He went big, and I can remember at the time it was like people were just raising their eyebrows and almost like you're kidding yourself sort of reaction. And yet he, with a few years of history down the track, he became a legend of the administrative game. I know where you're coming from, Carlton. I've had about 3 goes. I think another one was, can you see what we're cooking? Or
That's right.
Something along those lines. Yeah. I think Melbourne had a crack at one, and they've delivered a premiership along the line. So, I think it's horses for courses. I think Collingwood are in such a strong position in many ways that it would be sort of silly for them to come out and say we're going to have 150,000 members, if you like. So. I think it was probably an approach from the clubs from a bygone era in many respects. But if you're a club like North Melbourne, for instance, I think North Melbourne would be entitled to come out and say, well, this is what we've got. We've got a new coach. We've got a new administration, and we expect these things to happen over the next 5-year period. You
wouldn't be talking premierships, though, would you?
I don't think so. Not at that stage.
Port Adelaide wanted 3 premierships in 5 years. Now, I may stand corrected. That may have included a SANFL one or an AFLW one as well. But regardless, it was lofty expectations, debt-free, 100,000 members. And all of a sudden, 3 or 4 years into it, you've got 0 of those premierships, and you are made to look a little bit foolish. I know why clubs do it, and it gives the fans a vision, and perhaps it does sell a few memberships. But if you look back and actually analyse how many have worked, it's embarrassing when you do the exercise like I did today.
Well, St Kilda haven't won a flag since 1966.
Yeah.
Melbourne hadn't won one since 64.
The Bulldogs.
These and the Bulldogs themselves, they're not easy to win. Predicting a premiership is the most difficult and dangerous prediction of them all. And JC or J Mac from Bomb Beach wants to ask, does this rebuild mean that the Hawks' streak of winning a flag in each decade since the 60s will come to an end? Well, even that I think is impossible to answer because I reckon you can see sort of 5 years out, but after that, Paul Roos went in to the Swans and said he'd win a flag, I think privately, to the board within 5 years, and I think he won one in the space of 3 years. But I think boards are entitled to ask their coaches to be accountable with where they're going to be and what they can do, what they can see with a list.
Yeah.
But to say
keep it private.
It'd be easy to say Hawthorn can't win a flag this decade, but you'd be silly to do so because we've seen clubs turn themselves around in the space of 3 to 5 years.
Our next guest knows that better than anyone. Pete Ryan from The Age joins us. Pete, thanks for joining us.
G'day, Kane. G'day, Gerard. Yeah, I reckon 7 years is about your rule of thumb.
7 years, yep.
Do you like it when clubs release
zero?
these lofty expectations and mission statements and goals, Peter? Or would you think it's a little bit wiser to keep it internal like Craig Kelly has done on his first day at Collingwood?
Oh, I think it's. Look, Brendan Gale did it really successfully, and it was probably the time was right for Richmond because they were trying to get funds and raise funds to modernise the club basically. But I can't see much point now when you've got all these other levers to get interest and hope and financial support for your club. You're basically putting a noose around your neck and giving us an opportunity to lop you. When you don't reach those targets, everyone's reaching for a premiership. We all know that, and you've got to just have a board that keeps you accountable to that.
What sort of CEO do you think he'll be, Craig Kelly?
I think he'll be obviously a really strong one. I think he's right when I heard him speak about he's going in there to listen to find out exactly how clubs operate because obviously he's been running a big organisation himself. He's a man with lots of ideas, but he knows that footy clubs can quickly get away from you if you're not understanding exactly what's happening before you start making changes. So I think he'll take some time, probably spend the first few months finding his feet, getting a feel for how Collingwood works, obviously with the help of Jeff Brown, who he's been a long time mate with and advisor, and really then start to launch how he sees Collingwood being in the next 5 to 10 years. He'll be pretty dynamic though, and he'll also drive Collingwood's agenda and probably the big club's agenda at the AFL, which will be a change from what Mark Anderson was, which was much more keep it in-house.
I think their expectation, Collingwood, we don't have to be told what their expectation is, but after last year, they'd be looking to go better. And that brings you awfully close to a flag.
Well, they showed. You've just been talking about. I mean, they've been a good list for a little while, apart from that blip in 2021. You just got to go for it when you're a chance, and they're certainly a chance this year heading into 2023. They showed it last year. If you get on a roll and get momentum, and that's probably what helped even Geelong, Richmond, Melbourne, the last few premierships. They get momentum with you, and they're hard to stop.
Big announcement yesterday for St Kilda. Disappointing, sad announcement in some ways. They're chasing a new football manager. What sort of setback is it?
Well, you know Jeff better than I do, but he's a great footy person, and he's really a strong person to have in the Saints when they're trying to re-establish with Ross Lyon. There's a lot of strong personalities in there, but none would have been more so than Jeff Walsh. But he's also got a real deep sense of what makes a footy club tip, and he's got great empathy once he's internally. He certainly relates to players, and he's got a high BS meter. So he's a big loss for St Kilda, because I reckon the big question that's been asked of St Kilda and at St Kilda is, where are they actually at? Are they fair income looking to be a top four under Ross Lyon straight away, which I have my doubts, or do they really need to go to the draft for the next couple of years and restock? And holding the line on that, Jeff Walsh would have been critical. So it's going to be hard for a new footy manager to come in and try to keep expectations at a realistic level.
It's difficult to pluck one off the clothesline too, a footy manager. I mean, where do you go to?
Well, I was talking about this. I reckon we spoke about this last year, Gerard.
Yep.
There's very, very little talent. It's one of the failings of the AFL, I reckon, without being too critical of them. But just the industry hasn't really generated a bunch of people who are natural fits to go in as footy manager. I mean, you can look at list managers who might graduate into that role, and so on, but they're few and far between. I mean, Collingwood had to pluck Graham Wright from Hawthorn. There's just Jeff Welsh had to be brought back out of, Siberia to go back in to footy land. They're hard to find. I can't, off the top of my head, pick someone who's an obvious candidate to go into that role.
Pete Ryan is with us from The Age. Now, speaking of footy managers, Gerard and I have a bit of a in-house joke about the vacant position at the AFL. I mean, they're releasing rule changes, but there's no head of footy, Pete. When do you expect that position to be filled?
Yeah, we wouldn't have minded a change to the push in the back rule, Gerard, either, would we?
Yeah, we would have liked to see that. Don't bring it up with Kane, though. He's not on our team.
Oh, okay. I reckon that I spoke to someone at the AFL last week, and they said they were close to having someone in that position, but before Christmas. But then there was a bit of a setback. Obviously, that person either pulled out or got another position. There's a lot of talk around Laura Kane as being a potential candidate, who's already the competition manager, and whether she'd go into that football operations role under Andrew Dillon. She's certainly someone that a lot of club people I speak to said would be a reasonable candidate, albeit it'd be pretty historical having a female in that position. And then you're looking at other football managers from clubs, but it's getting late in the season for anyone to go into that position now from that sort of role. I think they're in a bind because the other component to it is, does a new CEO really want to have their fingerprints over a new football manager given the importance of the role? It's going to be difficult to find a replacement.
It will. You've written about Kozzie Pickett, who I was almost convinced was going to request a trade to South Australia this off-season. He didn't, and he honoured his contract at Melbourne, but I wouldn't have been surprised if he left at the end of this coming season. Have you got the latest though for us?
Yeah. Well, look, basically all it is that Melbourne has been talking to his management, and we now know that he's going to be no rush to re-sign in the early rounds of this year. They're going to give him time, which could get to the middle of the season. So, I mean, the concern for all Melbourne supporters is it gets into the Luke Jackson territory and becomes a repeat of that, which became quite distracting. I don't think Kozzie Pickett will get to that point because he's just a different character to Luke Jackson. And I also think he's really happy with Melbourne, with Simon Goodwin and with the environment. It's just whether he wants to, play out the next 5 years of his career in Victoria, and that'll be the question because he's going to have clubs from Western Australia and South Australia again looking to lure him out, and this year he's out of contract. So there's a big decision for him to make, but Melbourne's going to let him take his time to make it.
Geez, it'd be a double gut punch if they lost both Jackson and Kozzie Pickett, two youngsters who have dragged so many people through the gate and were seen as the future. Real gut punch.
Absolutely. I mean, Pickett would be one of the most favourite players of any Melbourne supporter, particularly young supporters. And he was, although he's a low possession, he's a match winner. And he was critical, those two players, to that 2021 premiership. And really, Pickett will again be a critical player for them this year. He just adds that X factor and excitement. But as you know, you come out of one state and go into another, particularly these days, and players come out of contract, they aren't necessarily recommitting until they've got all the information they need.
One from left field. When Ross Lyon was playing in a grand final as coach of Fremantle, he wasn't playing when he was coaching. Chris Bond was his footy manager. I wonder, he's unemployed in the footy world. I wonder if he could go and pluck an ex-footy manager and Ross goes and gets the team really back together again.
Yeah, well, that'd be a good call, actually, given, we've got enough St Kilda old stages. Might as well get a few old Dockers into the fold. Yeah, Chris Bond, the last time I spoke to him was at a bonfire in Tassie. He seemed pretty relaxed down there. And we haven't heard or seen from him for a while. But, look, if he came back in, it is a left field. I hadn't actually thought of him. But you do need someone, and Ross is well regarded and so on, but someone who knows Ross well enough that he knows how to pull him into line. Not that he needs to be pulled into line, but at least challenge him.
Yep.
And I think people need to be around the footy club. That's why Jeff Walsh is a big loss, but it's not a place for a novice football manager.
Sounds like the life sitting by a bonfire in Tassie. Pete, thank you so much for joining us and for all the footy updates.
Great to chat, boys. Have a good year.